It's a delightful stroke.
It was full-on sport at our place. I mean, we were playing every sport possible.
Good heavens. What a brilliant performance.
Cricket, tennis, soccer, golf, table tennis, squash, just every sport we were playing like 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day.
It's brilliant. Stephen likes to cut shot. I'm probably stronger off my legs.
It's beautifully played. It's 4 more.
Mark is certainly a bloke who likes a bit of a punt and a good time. Steve, on the other hand, is much more serious about life.
These days, when Australia play Test cricket, you can bet your life that one of the War twins will be involved in the thick of the action. So prodigious is their talent with both bat, ball and in the field. These 29-year-olds are the only twins to have ever played Test cricket, and yet when Steve Waugh was selected for his first Test match in 1985, their careers set off on totally different paths.
I was picked when I was 20 years old, and I think the Rebel Tour just went to South Africa, so we lost 15 or 16 players, and there was a huge gap there. And cricket wasn't in a good state in 1985 in Australia. We were a pretty weak side, so they were looking for any young guys who were doing well in Shield cricket. I'd played about 6 or 7 games, got a couple of hundreds, taken a few wickets, and I was thrown in there. And I really, at the time, I knew I wasn't quite ready for it, but I thought some guys never get a chance, so I might as well try and take the opportunity. But it probably took me 3 years to settle into Test cricket.
Normally, we'd like to probably have them 3 or 4 years in the Sheffield Shield, and Mark was really the lucky one because he had that time, and then he went to the English county cricket. So he had that wonderful period where he could just settle down and get runs. We had to rush, on the other hand, Steve into the side because we were desperate to rebuild a team, and we saw him as one of the solutions to our problems. So in that regard, he had a much harder run, and it probably took him longer to come through and be successful in Test cricket because of it.
Yes, lovely shot.
It took Steve Waugh 4 years to make his maiden Test 100. That was on the 1989 tour of England and began an incredible sequence of 393 runs before being dismissed.
Done it again. It's there to be hit.
There's a man out at deep point.
There it is, and he punches the air with delight, and why not? That's been a brilliant 100, brilliant. He's waited some while for that. First Test 100, and really has set the whole innings alight.
Many questioned Mark's determination, and his Test debut was delayed until 1991, ironically at the expense of his brother. He immediately showed his class, scoring a delightful century in his maiden innings against England at Adelaide.
I think I'd made 2500s before I got a game for Australia, which is fairly unusual in Australia. But then again, you know, I'd served a good apprenticeship. I'd sort of known what the game was about. Played against a lot of good players before I made my debut and played in England, which was lucky. A couple of years before that, I don't think I was good enough anyway to be playing Shield Test cricket. I'd made a few runs in Shield cricket, but not a lot. It was probably only the last year that I'd really sort of stuck my hand up and, you know, sort of said I was ready for Test cricket.
That's it. He smashed it to the boundary. That's Mark Waugh's 100. 100 on debut. What a magnificent innings it's been.
Between them, they've now played 118 tests, average virtually 44 with the bat and 37 with the ball. Mark is one of the world's best slip fielders.
Oh, what a catch. Brilliant catch. Brilliant, brilliant catch.
Steve is deadly away from the bat.
Hit hard. Oh, and a magnificent stop by Waugh. And a direct hit. And Hudson...
In true Aussie fashion, they were raised on a diet of sport.
Mum and Dad were both sports people. They both actually played tennis. Dad played a lot of tennis with Tony Roach and John Newcombe and those guys, so he was quite good at that under-19 level, but they had a bit of a problem. They had both of us when they were 19, 20, so that ended their sporting career. So, but Mum took up squash later on at the age of 40, and she went on to play state one squash at 45 years old, so that was a pretty fair achievement.
I know where to bowl to him, he knows where to bowl to me, but we won't tell too many people. But yeah, we played all sports together. We used to play tennis against each other, soccer in the backyard, and cricket down the driveway.
Although twins, Steve and Mark have clearly different batting styles and indeed personalities.
What I most like about Christmas now is not having to share the toys with Mark anymore.
What I like most about Christmas is getting lots of presents, lots of clothes and chockies and
things like that?
Totally different. Different in appearances, different in styles, different in attitudes, but the end result is two magnificent cricketers.
I think Mark was much more of a natural sort of timer of the ball and classical sort of player, and I think for bowlers he's one of the most difficult players to bowl against, because he's one of those players that if a bowler bowls the ball on the line he wants to, say off stump, he has the habit of knocking those sort of balls through the leg side. And then if you try and adjust your line a little bit and bowl a bit wider of off stump, he also plays well on the off side. So on his day, he's a very, very difficult batsman to bowl against. And he infuriates the captain a bit because he always chips the ball through mid-wicket and square leg, and wherever you've got a fielder, he seems to find the gap. So he's a lovely player to watch. He's got a good temperament, very nice guy, and totally different to his brother, really.
Mark's obviously a bit more graceful than I, probably a bit more brutal the way I play the game.
He's what I call a stiffer sort of player. He hits the ball very hard, likes playing square on the offside. You feel you can always bowl short at him because he doesn't employ the hook shot. He always ducks under it or tries to fend it off. But you know, he's a very strong player through sort of mid-off, extra cover, square cover, and you know, he's a very determined player, and the sort of player that when he gets in, you feel that you have to produce a good ball to get him out.
Their monumental unbroken partnership of 464 for New South Wales against Western Australia in 1990, a world record for the 5th wicket, is one unusual statistic they've put together, and yet easily the most unusual is the fact that they've both been dismissed for 99 against England.
On the edge of a first Test century in England, it would have been his 4th. Alas, it's 99.
Out, Joy. And there he goes, and Stephen Waugh's not out 99. It's 9 for 400, 10 for 402, and that's the end of it. A very good performance by Stephen Waugh.
Although primarily batsmen, the twins do love to turn their arm over.
I don't know about bowling too much. It's a little bit tough on the body, especially if you've got to bat up the top of the order, but I enjoy being in the game, whether that's bowling, fielding or batting, and I'm fortunate that I bat and I can give their fast bowlers a bit of their own medicine back, and that, you know, that means a bit of short stuff.
I do enjoy bowling. I like you know, sticking up the opposition and getting a bit physical. That's the way I bowl my best. I mean, if I'm out there bowling, you know, trying to be friendly, I don't bowl well, so I find that I've got to get aggressive, and that's part of my makeup.
It has been suggested that their rivalry may have soured their friendship.
I think there was a fair bit of rivalry when we were, say, 12, 13 growing up, and a lot of people put pressure on us saying, you know, who's the best, and, you know, that sort of stuff. It was pretty intense there for a couple of years, but I think once you reach 15 or 16, you know that you've got to look after yourself and worry about your own performances rather than trying to compare to your brother all the time.
You don't want to criticise one in front of the other because they get very defensive then.
I'm always supporting Mark whenever he plays his cricket and hoping he does well, and I think we get on pretty well. We haven't had too many arguments over the years, but I suppose you don't when you don't talk too much.
And no doubt, if they don't show a great deal of emotion, there'll be a good feeling between them out there at the middle.
Shared a room for 17 years, so since then we've never shared a room on tour. You know, we like each other, but we don't go out of our way to talk to each other.